Shabbat Shalom, great saints of Yahweh. May the peace of Yahweh be with each and every one of you. You may be seated. So what's today? 2-4. What would that mean? 2-4-17. Well, let's talk about it. Today is the anniversary of the establishment of the house of Yahweh. Remember? 2-4-1983. And just to get us off the ground here, I just want to show you what the meaning of 365 means, because as we know, an anniversary occurs every year. And as you can see, it means to renew in Strong's. It means to renew, and also means to complete a process which intensifies, means going up to a higher stage or level of sanctification by Yahweh's power. Okay, so these anniversaries are very, very important. That's why Yahweh gave them to us. And I'm going to show you today, I'm going to try to set out and show you today just how special this one is this year. Okay, so let's start off with talking about today's date. And I just saw this last night. I called Pastor this morning and shared it with him. I'm sure he was already like, wow, what took you so long, But it means alive, that liveth, life, living. Okay, and it's from, when you think of life, you need to think of the tree of life, which is the complete plan of Yahweh for mankind. Remember Yachanan 1:1-5. In that plan was life, and that life was the light to mankind, okay? And this is the house of the light, is it not? The house of the laws of Yahweh, and this is the tree of life. Genesis 2:9. It's from 24:18, and it means to live, to keep alive, to let live and keep alive. It's from 24:21, which means to keep, to cleave, make alive, to live, to nourish. Now, these are very important. Look at these words: preserve alive, quicken, recover, repair, restore, revive, to save alive, to be restored to life or health, to live forever. And it's from 23:31, and it means to live, to declare, to show, to tell. Now, isn't that what we've been talking about? Is that not describing the complete job of the house of Yahweh, to bring life, to declare, to show, to tell? Is that not what Israel Hawkins does? Man, to me it's just amazing. And now this is from, and also goes to 23:24. It means to show, to inform, to declare, to interpret, to explain. And that's, by the way, this word is all used in Daniel. All in the book of Daniel, where it talks about showing and telling. Now, let's talk about, this is from the House of Yahweh Established, the booklet, The House of Yahweh Established. I'm going to read this part to you. Pastor says, Yahweh started stirring his house to be established in 1967, which was 50 years ago, this year. When you think of the number 50, what do you think of? Yeah, the Jubilee, right? And this is the year of release, is it not? It says, Yahweh started stirring his house to be established in 1967, laying the groundwork for his prophecies to be fulfilled. In 1967, I came to Abilene, Texas, and in 1967, Asher Kaufman began his work of establishing the site for the rebuilding of the temple in Jerusalem. That was in 1967. Now, he says, now listen, in 1981, through the guidance and direction of Yahweh, an attorney was engaged to begin the process which officially established the House of Yahweh in the United States of America. And he goes on here, the charter, we got the charter from the state of Texas on 7/21/81. And that in itself is amazing when you think of that number 7 and the number 21, right? 777. There's sevens written all over that. but he says the Internal Revenue Service of the U.S., the chief nation of all nations, officially recognized the establishment of the House of Yahweh on 2/4/1983. 2/4/83, which was 34 years ago. And as you see, he shows that Abel started the house of Yahweh, that first work of Yahweh in Genesis, just as he did in these last days. Let's look at the number 34, the definition of the number 34. And it means needy, needy one, poor. And I want you to write the scripture down, Ecclesiastes 9:13-18, that talks about that poor man that had the great wisdom that no one listened to, that actually saved the city. Go and read about that. And you know, pastor is needy. He's needy of Yahweh, okay? That's what he's needy of, and that's who he begs for all his answers from, and that's who is working with him in these last days, along with our great high priest, Yahshua Messiah. And it's from this word here, A-B-A-H, I think it's probably Abba, and it means to be willing, to obey, to yield, to yield to Yahweh, to yield to righteousness. This is what our great overseer does, and that's what he's taught us to do as well. To obey, to yield, to consent, and be willing, okay? Be willing. Now, 34 in the Greek, it means a flock, a herd. Are we not a flock? Little flock? Remember Abel, was he not a keeper of sheep? Remember the great future priest told you about the tiller of the ground, but there was a keeper of sheep. His name was Abel, a teacher of righteousness. And it's from this word here, these two words right here. And let's go to the first one. It means to lead, to bring, to guide, to bring, to lead, to guide. As in guiding a flock, leading us to righteousness, to pass a day, keep a feast, or celebrate a feast. And it's from 32, and it means messenger. A messenger from Yahweh, conveying news or other things from Yahweh to men. A messenger or delegate. Remember a Malach. And it says probably the angels of the churches in Revelation, right? Well, yeah, I would say that Malach, that messenger, that signet that Yahweh uses in these last days to give us this message, who would that be talking about, everyone? Who else? The seventh Malach. Now, 1983, that was 34 years ago. Now, I want to remind you of something I told you last year, and I know Yahweh saved this for this year for a special purpose, because there's a highway. Here it is right here. Right here. This is actually in Buffalo Gap when I'm traveling back to Laredo. At Buffalo Gap, here's the intersection. 613 and 83. Okay, as you're heading south. And by the way, there's an Alon station right there. And I just want to kind of give you a heads up about what those talk about. The name Alon in Hebrew means oak tree. Okay? Oak tree. So when you go to those gas stations, remember these things. Because that's talking about who? Who's the mighty oak? That's right, it's the firm, mighty oak Israel Hawkins. Okay? Now, this Highway 83 comes through here. And as a matter of fact, let me show you this picture. This is in Abilene as you're entering Abilene. And these are the two numbers you'll see. 83 and 322. Okay? Keep those in your mind. Highway 83, if we can bring this in a little bit. Okay, it's still a little blurry, but let me back up a little bit. Let me back up just a hair. Right there. Okay. Now, and let me get my vision on here. Okay. It tells you that Highway 83 is the second longest north-south road in the United States. It starts in North Dakota at the Canadian border, and the actual town is called West Hope. West Hope, okay? Because that's where the hope is. It's in the west. And it goes through Laredo. It says here it goes to Abilene. It travels down to Laredo. And then actually the south end is that it meets up with 101. 101, you know who that is, right? Okay? It ends at 101, and it's in Brownsville, Texas, where it ends. So it goes all the way down, okay, to the bottom. And it's 1,894 miles long. 83. Okay, let's look that up. I got this backwards. 1894. Okay, here it is. 1894. It means ebony. And it's from this word. Don't let that fool you. It's from this word right here. 1893. And 1893 is Abel. Abel, the second son of Adam. Wow, what a coincidence, right? And by the way, who's in his 83rd year this year? Let's see, 1934 to 2017 would be 83, right? Interesting. Abel. Wow. Imagine that. Now, I want to read something to you from the Two Witnesses book. And let me plug this beautiful book because there's something else written on there that sometimes we overlook, and it says, New Light. New Light. The Two Witnesses, New Light. Remember, there's nothing new under the sun, okay? But it's renewed. Now, it's talking here on page 192 about the dedication of the work of the Two Witnesses. I'm going to leave this up for you. Pastor says, it was in November 1980 that I called my brother telling him that this mobile home was almost finished for use as a sanctuary, and I wanted him to come and dedicate it to Yahweh on the Feast of Dedication, which that year was on December 2nd, 1980. Jacob gladly accepted this invitation and brought with him his family and other members of the house of Yahweh from Odessa. And he goes on at the bottom of the page to tell us that the word dedication literally means renewal. Renewal. The renewal of the worship of Yahweh. Turn over to Genesis 4:26. Genesis 4:26 in your book of Yahweh. On page, do I need to give you a page number? 4? Hey, that's a great number too, right? Number 4. So Genesis chapter 4, verse 26, and it says, And as for Seth, to him also a son was born, and he named him Enosh. It was then that the name of Yahweh began to be invoked again. Now keep that word invoked in your mind, because the word invoke means, amongst other things, I can't really get that down to you. Let me read the definition. It says, to cite or appeal as an authority for an action or in support of an argument, to have recourse, to turn to call on in prayer as a witness or for inspiration. It means to appeal to pray, to call on, to supplicate, to entreat, to solicit, to beg, implore, to literally beseech. It also means to make use of a law or a right, as in prayer or supplication, to declare to be binding or in effect, to invoke the law, to call on a higher power for assistance. Now, that child Seth, or not Seth, but Enosh. Enosh. Can I get, okay, we might be able to see this. He was born here in 3769 BY. Write that number down. 3769. This is from I don't know the source here, but you can find it on any, if you go anywhere and look. Here's another source, shows you Enosh, the son of Seth, born 3769 BY. Remember, we don't give honor to Christ, the crusty Christ. You know, we only give honor to Yahweh, BY, before Yahshua. Now, so I did a little bit of math, okay? You know, by the way, last night, the sundown for the anniversary of the house of Yahweh in Clyde, 6:13 p.m. on the anniversary, right? Man, how do you do that? How does Yahweh do that? How'd he do that? Okay, so I did a little bit of math just to make this interesting, and I gave you the math so you can look at yourself, because Pastor said it was December 2nd, 1980, right? So I added 3769 BC to 1980, and that's the number, 5749. And lo and behold, I entered it in, this came out. It means to restore, to be restored, to bear witness, to say again, to invoke. Did it not just say over here that it was then that the name of Yahweh began to be invoked again? At the Feast of Dedication on December 2nd, 1980. How do you do that? It means to bear witness, to affirm solemnly, warn, exhort, or enjoin, admonish, charge, give warning. And it means witness. You know, it's just incredible to me. I don't know how we sleep at night, you know. Okay, so the two witnesses. Okay, let me move on. The surnaming of Israel. I got to get this in. Now he says, on page 193, he says, I was named at my birth by my next oldest brother, who's named me Buffalo Bill. Y'all remember that? But when the work of Yahweh was dedicated in 1980, and as the months went on, the longing to have my name changed became stronger and stronger until the desire to change my name actually started interfering with my every thought. It was only at this point that I felt I could not put this off any longer. So there was this urge, this urgency, this necessity to change his name. He says, I feel my given name is a hindrance to the work of Yahweh that I'm involved in. This is what he told the court in order to get his name changed. And over here, he shows it was the next week on March 15th, 1982, that the judge granted the name change legally, thereby fulfilling the prophecy that the witness Israel would do this very thing. Remember, surnaming himself by the name of Israel. The case was filed on March 16th, so it was granted on the 15th, filed on the 16th. And let me just show you, because Pastor called me the other night, and he says, does the number 315 mean anything to you? And that's kind of what led to all these numbers being found, and I was like, that's what I'm saying. It's the inspiration that comes from Yahweh's seventh Malach. Okay, that's where you get it from. It comes from nowhere else, right? And he gets it from Yahshua and Yahweh, and I'm telling you, it's just so amazing. So what I did was I went to, well, let me start here. We'll get to the 315. This is the two witnesses, new light in Gematria. Their numbers 30, write these down, 3581, 1932, and 322. 322, okay? Write those down, and I'll go through these with you. Now, 3581, it means to be firm, like that oak. It means vigor and force. Remember in Deuteronomy 34:7, it says, Moshe, his vigor and his force did not abate from him, even though he was 120 years old. Okay, do you see when Pastor gets up here, what does he look like? It looks like he's getting younger every day. Okay, he don't look like he's getting older. He still has that same vigor and force. It means in a good sense, force in a good sense. It means ability. It means able. And I put able there because he's able and willing. Remember what willing, the other definition? Force, fruits, might, powerful, strength, substance. It means strength of Malachim, the power of Yahweh, strength, produce. That's 3581. Let's look at 1932, that second number. It means considerateness, forbearance, fairness, gentleness, mildness, justice beyond justice, reasonable, fair, equitable, to carry out the real spirit of the law. That's what you see Pastor does. He follows Yahshua. It means suitableness, mildness, gentleness, and it's from this word here, 1933, which means gentle, mild, moderate, equity, true equity that appropriately fulfills the spirit of the law. Remember, the law is spiritual. And it means moderation and patient. Does that not describe somebody you know? Now let's look at 3:22 here. And it means, it's from this word akar, it means backward. So let's go to this word akar. And it means afterward, west. West. And it means the west. Time to come, hereafter. And it's from 299, and it means my brother is evil. Or brother of wrong. Brother of wrong. Now I'm going to read something to you here that he wrote. Because he talked about the great tragedy that he had this dream in 1951 that him and his brother Jacob were the two witnesses. Okay, he had that in 1941, actually 40 years before his brother died in 1991, on this date right here. 3/22/1991. The witness Jacob was given to the curse, as Isaiah 43:28 spoke on. Because remember there was a separation of the two witnesses over the customs of the East. Remember the meat and milk tradition that was brought? And Pastor said, no, that's not, there's no law there that says we have to do that we have to separate those two. And that's where the separation came, was the meat and the milk. Now, I want to read this pertinent part to you. It shows here that the brother died on the 22nd in 1991. And also, I needed to get in, before I close this here, the two dates, March 15th and March 16th, because 3:15 means to constrain or compel, urge, do so with urgency, as with a pressing necessity. Remember, he needed to change that name. He needed to change his name. Okay? He felt that pressing necessity. And it's from this word here, which means constraint, compulsion. There's need to do it, a necessity, a compelling, a pressing situation, kind of like what I'm in right now, because I got to get this last one in. And it says, notice, a following brother, after his brother, after Jacob, remember? And he shows in the two witnesses that he didn't understand this till after his brother passed away. Then the prophecies all came to his mind and he understood, okay? But it was after his brother died. And 3:16 means the same thing, necessary, compelling, pressing, etc. And I'm being pressed right now on time, so how y'all feeling now? Are you awake? Well, get ready, because it only gets better, as time goes on here. We're going to get to hear from the greatest teacher in the world a little later, so stick around. May Yahweh bless.